Hello. Um, but anyway, yeah, I'm Owen Gildersleeve, an artist now based in Brighton. Um, I was in London for about 15 years and and then decided to move down to the coast during lockdown. I originally studied here, graphic design, so I've kind of come full circle, which is really nice. And I've been on Levine US for 8 years, we realized the other day, which is lovely. And I've been doing lots of trips to the States to meet people in person. It's kind of nice getting to do this version of it where you get to see me in my space and where I work. We've got a lovely studio on 2 floors. This is where my studio manager sits when she's in, Lizzie. My assistants are here and help me out. We've got a nice team who come and help on various jobs and projects. Hello, new people. um, Thanks for joining me. So yeah, I'm going to start my presentation. Um, let's go. And then what I was going to do is give a bit of a talk, intro into my work, my practice, and then I'm going to do a little paper cutting demo. It's something I tend to do the paper cut demo in person with you all around me. So this is the first time trying it online, so I'm going to have to readjust my screen, but hopefully it'll be okay. Without further ado, so my name is Owen Gildersleeve. As I mentioned, artist now based in Brighton, and I specialize in handcrafted illustration, set design, and art direction. So my work ranges from small scale, intimate little illustrations, right up to large scale sets, installations. And clients vary from publishing, sort of music based projects, right up to large ad campaigns where people will bring in teams to film us and our process, as well as one-off original artworks. Bottom right was an artwork created for NASA, which is now in their Pasadena offices. So a real array of work over the last 15 years. And I thought I'd take you back to some of my inspirations and then how I got to where I am now. So my early inspirations, I guess, came a lot from my parents' record collection. Bands like Cream, the Beatles, where the sleeves were really eye-catching and exciting. But also I had a real passion for fine art, especially sort of what I call tactile artists, such as Cy Twombly, Robert Rauschenberg, and Sam Kiefer, where you can really get a sense for how their hands have created the works. I've also had a passion from an early age in photography. And so when it came to university, it was a question of like, where do I go now? Like, what am I going to do? And it was around that time I found a work of the likes of um, Alan Fletcher and Stefan Sagmeister. And it was a real click for me because it made me realize that I can work in a really hands-on way, that the final output can be, considered design. And it made me realize I can actually bring everything together into my practice. I don't have to sort of peel off and do lots of different things. And so that's exactly what I did. And I applied to study graphic design in Brighton. The course was quite dry, and so I realized I'd have to sort of peel myself away to create the more expressive works I wanted to do. So I started reaching out to record stores in town and people on different courses and started playing with little personal projects. This is one of them for a fashion show party, playing with torn strips of fabric. And it's quite rudimentary, but it's interesting looking back at this because you can really see this sort of graphic gridded type layout becomes a really key part of my work moving forwards. And it was pieces like this that started sort of filling up my portfolio. And so when it came to graduating, I wasn't quite sure what to do, but I realized that I had a real passion for this illustration work. So I actually went to New York for 3 months, interned with an artist called Mario Hugo. And it was the first time I'd had an insight into freelance illustration. And it just really excited me. The idea of having full control of your own destiny, I guess, and getting to work on a real wide range of projects. And I'd been lucky actually towards the end of my course to actually have a few of my first commissions. The one on the left here is my first ever commission for the New York Times when I was towards the end of my second year. And this piece is all representing the microphone cords going up to the presidential podium. to do with the president misspeaking, which he sometimes did. And this other piece was for Fast Company magazine in my third year, which was about the September issue. And for me, September still sums up memories going back to school. So this is me using my school tie. After my New York trip, I moved to London and I just started chipping away and trying to hustle and get some commissions in. And one big change actually was the move into paper as a medium. I started getting some commissions through where I realized I actually couldn't just use found materials. I needed to devise more of a narrative. And I realized paper was the perfect material for that. I could actually transfer my designs onto it, cut it out, and then shoot it. And it kind of helped bring everything to life. And the piece in the middle was actually my first ever paper cut commission back sort of 2008 sort of time. And it was funny, I was doing this while I was at home after my New York trip. And my brother actually peeked over my shoulder. It was all flat and said, Owen, you should add some depth to it. And that's actually like inspired everything since. So I really owe my whole career to my brother. So thanks, Evan. Appreciate it. So yeah, now jumping 15 years later, I'm in a studio in Brighton, a really nice light space, which you can see behind me. As I mentioned in my little pre intro, I have a studio manager who sits behind me, and I have a team of assistants. And my practice is quite flexible. So based on the project, we'll bring in different teams, different groups of people. And yeah, it's quite nice. We can sort of ebb and flow. I also team up photographers and various other people. And although I think things have become a lot more refined over the years, I guess my approach hasn't changed too much. It's still quite simple. And so this is an example of a multi-layered book cover artwork that I created a while back. And this is all created using hand cut layers, which are divided with bits of foam board or foam core to add depth. And then I'm literally taking that layered piece and putting it on the table here next to me, using natural light to photograph everything, because it gives a really nice soft shadow. It helps retain the paper textures, and it just means that you're not sort of bleaching everything out. And so I don't have any real studio lighting, and I just stand over a piece with my digital SLR, take a photo. And one thing that has changed is I've gotten a lot better at retouching. So I retouch the image, send the final file off to a client, and then it's used for cover, advertising, various other things. And so I use this sort of style for a range of different projects, from book covers. The one on the right is actually my book, which actually came out 10 years ago this year, which is wild, to do with my art form, paper cutting. I also work on a range of posters for various events, films, and I thought it was quite nice to show this one in the middle, which is for Outside Lands Festival in San Francisco. And you can really see that kind of graphic gridded layout reappearing again here. And for this poster, I wanted to portray the variety of different bands and artists at the festival. It's quite varied. And so I thought lots of different typographic pieces would be an interesting way of sort of portraying that. And it's quite nice. I always like to show the making of, so you can see how it's pieced together. And I always find this quite fascinating because I think hand making is a really important part of my practice. There are other artists who do a lot of sort of digital paper art, but there's something about the imperfections that just can't be achieved any other way than actually cutting things by hand. There's just these like human errors which are really hard to add in. And what's really nice is because there's so much process in my work, I'm often capturing these behind the scenes, and then clients are using them for their advertising, social media, as part of the campaign. And often find actually these images sometimes attract more interest than the final artwork, which is sometimes a bit frustrating with the amount of time it goes into the actual final piece, but it's also lovely. I mean, people just love a glimpse behind the curtain. And sometimes I'm actually piecing artworks together. So cleaning them up, gluing them together, and then sending them off to clients to put on their walls. This was a piece for a recent exhibition in London, where a selection of artists such as Anthony Burrell, Jean Julien, Takita Dean, and myself were invited to create record sleeves, one-off record sleeves. So actually at the bottom of this piece is a little slipcase for a 7-inch for the specials track We Sell Hope. And then they were all auctioned off to charity. And of the 700 sleeves, I was so proud that mine was in the top 4 of all of the auctions. And all the money went to charity, which is fantastic. So I thought I'd take you a bit through my process, just to give you an insight into how I come about making these works. And there's quite a few stages I've built into my practice to actually help with feedback rounds, because once you start making, it's sometimes difficult to go backwards. So every project I work on starts with a range of rough pencil sketches, and I like to supply at least 2-3 options for clients so that we can back and forth with ideas. And one important thing to point out is I really like treating projects like collaborations. You know, it's really nice to team up, be really sort of communicative, jump on a call, throw around the ideas together, just to make sure everyone's kind of happy and everyone's having their input. Once a route's chosen, I'll then draw up everything digitally in Illustrator. And this particular piece was to do with World Mental Health Month for Meta Open Arts. And so the development here was interesting because we realized actually we wanted it to be readable by all. And so we decided to lose the character, you know, the face, just so that there wasn't a specific type of person linked to this. You know, it could be applicable to everyone worldwide. And this piece was to do with sharing your story and switching off, hence the sort of abstract flow of shapes. And then we did a couple of rounds of amends on the mock-ups. And then once everything is approved, I use a line work and then cut that out of the paper. And it's all layered and shot in my studio. And actually, I've got a nice question from Cami. Curious what weight of paper you use and what you use to create the spaces between layers. I want to try. Please, yes, definitely do. The paper actually isn't too heavy. It's probably about 230 GSM. I think anything over 300 gets quite hard to cut. And then the spaces I use, actually got here foam core. Oh, can you see this? Yeah, foam core layers. You can get these in 3 or 5 mil. And so this piece on the right-hand side is spaced up with these. And so what I do once a piece is made is I'll either shoot it in one go, or for motion purposes, I'll sometimes shoot it in lots of different pieces and then comp it together in After Effects, or comp it together in Photoshop and then give it to an animator to bring to life in After Effects. There's a couple of different ways of animating that we do. Is these After Effects animations are quite quick and allow you to kind of push beyond reality. But you also do a fair bit of stop motion as well. That's obviously a bigger production and it requires a photographer, a team, a lot of time, a bit more budget, but both have their pros and cons. And I think sometimes for these quicker turnaround jobs, After Effects animation is kind of perfect, but you do sometimes lose a little bit of that hands-on final feel. Yeah, and this was a really lovely project. There was 6 different quotes about mental health and mental health struggles, which we brought to life and then were applied to the Meta offices and used on social media and used to just sort of start the dialogue. And although my work's sometimes quite abstract, I always try and work out a reason for, say, the colors. And Meta Open Arts was a really nice sort of print space within the buildings. And so actually the colors here are referencing the sort of like print overlays, that kind of old school print color effect. And then the quote at the top right, we only grow stronger and reduce stigma by opening up and talking about it. I actually read the quote, recorded myself, and then used the sound waves from my voice to create the piece. So everything has like a reason, and it's quite nice. I think I love dealing with that abstraction, but having a story behind it. Alongside the sort of type-based pieces, I also do a fair bit of product work. And for this, there's a few ways I go about it. Sometimes I do it all in-house as well. So these are all done by myself, either with the real product, um, with the Arm and Hammer piece, or with a pack shot, which this Fanta bottle didn't exist. So they sent me a pack shot and I've retouched it to look like it's part of this piece. I've picked up a few tricks along the way from the photographers I've worked with, looking over their shoulders. And it's quite nice to be able to sort of manage whole projects here in the studio. But there's also times where we team up with a photographer and larger teams. This was a recent project for Belveni, and it was a really lovely one, actually. They approached me. They consider themselves one of the most handcrafted of single malts, and they wanted to team up with a craft person to represent the flavor profiles of the whiskey. And so I thought it'd be really nice to, playing with my layered style, create this kind of flow of forms, which represents the sort of honey base layer of the bottles, and then to highlight certain ingredients. So for this piece, you've got the vanilla, you've got the cinnamon swirls coming out, and these are all created for real with a little plinth behind the layers on which the bottles sat, which you can kind of see here. And the nice thing about doing things for real is you get the light bounce, which you, again, can only really achieve by playing. And the bottle really looks like it's inset because it is. But also it allows us to do motion and other sort of elements as part of the project. And so we did these little shorts. There's sound here, but I'm not sure if it's going to work, but it doesn't matter actually anyway. So I'm going to show you a few of these. And one more. Cool. So yeah, some really nice motion pieces. And this was a really fun project because I also got asked to kind of creatively over look at some animation pieces as well, in my sort of layered style. And we did 6 different sets in total. So all different flavors, all different types of whiskey, different ages, lots of sort of front on shots and beautiful behind the scenes. And then I art directed a range of other pieces for projects. And I really love these jobs where people are coming and are open to the discussions of how we can push things even further. So the first thing we did was a small animation to do with the story of the brand. And I think for this, I'm not sure if the sound's going to work. So I might have to, let's see. It doesn't matter too much, but maybe not. Cool. And we also did some pop-up books, which was really lovely because we created these as a really limited range of gifts, which could be given out to special clients and other people. And what's nice is because everything is designed in Illustrator, we've got the files, and so it wasn't too hard to then reappropriate them for this kind of pop-up book style. And this actually contains 2 miniatures of the bottles of whiskey with a very elaborate array of embossing, foiling, various other things using a print house in France. And that was a lot of fun. And I actually did not get one of these. They were so limited, I wasn't allowed one. So if you see one in anywhere, grab one for me, please. I've actually got another film. I'm going to try and see if I can get sound working.
Hi, I'm Owen Gildersleeve and I'm a papercraft artist based in Brighton. I studied graphic design, but I was always interested in fine art and photography, so I found through the medium of paper I was able to add a touch of craft to my design. My craft is a combination of traditional and modern techniques. A lot of my designs are pre-drawn up, and then everything will be hand cut using a surgical grade scalpel. I've been working on this project for a couple of months now. It started with lots of exciting conversations with a team at Levine, discussing interesting ways of showcasing the flavours in the whiskies. I then went into a development stage where I drew up the designs and eventually handcrafted the sets out of paper. This project was really nice because it was very open. Balvenie gave me full creative freedom with how I wanted to portray flavours in their whiskey, and it allowed me a chance to experiment and explore different handcrafted paper techniques.
There you go. So yeah, really lovely and super nice when you get the chance to create sort of a full body of a story. And also what's nice is I think because of process, more and more clients are sending teams in to capture that and using that for their advertising and various other purposes, which is a lot of fun. I guess there's a lot to show. So a lot of my work comes off the back of personal work and development. And I think it's really important having personal practice going on alongside your commercial. It sort of helps fulfill and feed the soul, but also I find it leads to lots of exciting things. What's nice also is a chance to bring people together. And a good example of this is a recent exhibition in San Francisco. I had an agency called Argonaut. They have this really nice gallery space, and I took over the gallery, kind of inspired by the NASA space, which was coming to the end of its 9-year mission at the time that I was working on the show. And as part of this, I thought it would be a lovely chance to bring people in and to have a big paper cut workshop. And this was lovely, inviting a range of clients through from the agency, such as people from Benefit, Cosmetics, Sephora, Meta. And we had a big night with lots of wine, and everyone got a chance to have a go at paper cutting. And what was lovely is it was the first time a lot of people had used a scalpel even, but by the end, everyone was walking away with a piece of layered paper cut art. So if any of you are ever interested in this kind of thing, it's always a lot of fun. And I recently did a big one with the BBC in the UK, and they had about 100 people, which was wild, but it was amazing. And again, everyone just was lovely and really enjoyed the process. And I kind of wanted to show this sort of development of like a personal work into an interesting project or two. A few years back, I was doing a lot of layered illustration. I really wanted to bring things to life and bring it off the page. And so I teamed up with a local London photographer, and we decided to experiment with architectural spaces. And these are all created just using white paper and hard lighting. And what was interesting is we didn't have a light hard enough. The one we hired just wasn't quite right, but we realized the lights on our phone was perfect. And so this is actually shot just using a rigged up phone, sort of taped out shot and a long exposure. And it was a lot of fun. We just created a series of various sets and forms, all exploring the spaces in between. And what was nice was we just sort of shot this, put it online, didn't think much more. A few years later, I had an email through, and Zadie Smith was interested in using an artwork for her cover. She'd written a series of essays during lockdown, and it was definitely a time where we didn't really know what was around the corner. And I think she thought and sort of related to these pieces that I'd shot. And so it's really nice just seeing these personal works getting used in this way. A producer also reached out to me, an artist called Lapalux, and he'd been writing an album, and over his desk he'd had these 2 postcards of the work of James Turrell, the lighting artist, and he really wanted to try and recreate this for the record sleeve, and saw my work and realized maybe through miniature sets we could do just that, and that is exactly what we did. So this is all created as a miniature set. It's about this big, and it's got lots of layers. And actually what we did was we did a photo shoot with a model, and this is printed out very small and then stuck into set. which you can see here. And this is actually Lapalux helping out. He's the best assistant I've ever had. And you can see the sort of behind the scenes here. It's quite makeshift, but I think that's part of the joy of it. And we've flooded it with fog and various other lighting. And because of my design background, it was really nice because then I could take over the sleeve as well and design this really nice gatefold album sleeve with a booklet of photos of Lapalux's instruments. And I also created these logos, one for each track, which we used for all the branding. So I'm going to play something. It might be a bit loud, but hopefully not. I'll turn it down just in case. There you go. It's a lot of fun. And what's been nice about these sort of like bringing stuff up off the page, it's kind of led to these larger, bigger builds and installations. One recent one was for Target taking over all of their stores across the US with these large decorations for their spring campaign. And for this one, we teamed up with their in-store fabricators, and they helped bring everything in my designs to life. So there's a lot of back and forth and little models, and just really amazing having my work sort of recreated on this quantity. And it's definitely something I couldn't have done myself. I think I would have been there for years. But yeah, really nice seeing the sort of abstract pieces actually recreated with this level of like sensitivity. And to finish, before I do, and just to say the demo is just going to be short, so I'll try not to keep you too long. But yeah, just to finish of the talk, I wanted to end on this project for Lush. What's quite nice about this one, it brings together pretty much everything I've shown. So the layered work, the installation, but we also brought in a little bit of motion within the final installation as well, which was a lot of fun. So Lush reached out to me and they had a campaign to do with self-preserving, and they wanted these ingredients that they'd use, these flowers, brought to life in my layered style. And so I created this lovely illustration, which was then sent to them as layers so that they could do lots of animation. But they also wanted these sets to be created and sent around to all of their stores around Europe. So I did a mass build in my studio with many assistants and sent these flowers out in packages with instructions so the store reps could build them in-house. And these were put alongside some big printouts of my design. And then for the Hero store in London, we thought we'd take things a step further. And it's a nice thing about these collaborative projects, throwing ideas around. I think they just wanted a similar build, but we were like, no, let's make the London store as special as possible. And so I brought in this 3D designer called Tom Forsyth, and he helped me add some motion into the sets. So I'm going to show you the film. Again, they did a really nice behind the scenes. Just a little note ahead of this. The interview is done after a 4 a.m. install. So I'm a little bit fried, but here we go.
Why are we here?
We are here because we were commissioned by Lush to make a window display for their self-preserving thing. This job where someone will approach me with a pre-designed concept, and then it's a case of me bringing it to life in my paper style. Sometimes you want things to be very graphic, so you need to get a paper with very little grain that looks quite slick. And then other times, someone may want a more crafty finish. And like for this particular job, for example, you want it to look handmade.
I've been brought in by Owen to basically make flowers move.
First of all, it was like fiddling around with little motors and code.
I've been doing the research and development and coding and 3D printing mechanisms.
We spent so much time in the process of putting these together actually seeing them in situ with real flowers alongside them.
Yeah.
It just sort of makes sense.
Suddenly everything's grown so much and you're just, I felt tired. When you actually see it dressed up and it's got all the kind of shaking of the petals and movement of the stalk and stuff, it's really exciting.
There we go. Thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate it. So I'm just going to sort myself out. I've got to have a slight reshuffle for this demo, and then I'll come off the screen share. So yeah, hi everyone. Phase 2. How's it going? So as I mentioned, everything I do is handcrafted out of layers of paper, and I've actually got a sort of work in progress layered piece here, which I will tilt as much as I humanly can before it falls apart. But if I bring it closer, you can see all the layers building. And this is all using foam core, so you can see the layers in between. And it's kind of something I like playing with is gradients of tones, often working from light to dark and back again. And I'm going to do this all manually because it's a bit more fun than trying to do it digitally. So I'm going to do the top layer here. And in order to do that, what I often do is take the top piece, I'm tracing it. So that's already been traced. And then just drawing slightly bigger around the form and then cutting out. And this is a surgical grade scalpel. You can buy them in craft stores in the UK, which is worrying, but I don't think you can in the US, but worth having a look. The brand I use is Swan Morton. I feel like I need to get a percentage from them for all the advertising I do. Anyway, so got surgical grade scalpel, you got the paper, which as Cami asked is around 210 GSM. And then it's a bit of cutting. So here we go. And I'm going to try and talk as I go. And there's something quite therapeutic about the cutting process. Often put on a podcast or listen to some music, and it's kind of a nice chance to get away from the screen for a bit. And it's also quite exciting because by the time we're doing the cutting, it's kind of towards the end of the project. So, you know, you're wrapping things up. You're sort of just getting going, because often the development stage, interestingly, takes longer than the making. The making can be a few days, but often we've got weeks of development, backs and forth, getting everyone, you know, happy with clients, as I'm sure you all know all too well. So yeah, this is just always the exciting bit, getting making. And yeah, everything's just cut by hand. I've gotten quite good at cutting curves. You have to put your pinky finger out. That's my trick. There you go. And then this will go on top. But what I like to do is to try and add some depth. I use these bits of foam core, which you can actually cut out as well. They're very soft, so it's kind of like cutting butter. And I'll place them on. And then I'll add the layer. There you go. So you can kind of, I'm going to try and do this again. This is all loose. I tend to not stick anything down until I'm finished because, well, you don't need to if you're just shooting it on the table. If I'm actually, thanks, Sharon. Sorry, nice message from Sharon. Thank you. Yeah, if I'm just making a piece for a photo shoot, then I won't stick it because I try and avoid using glue. As soon as you start using glue, it can get very messy. But for these, it's just loose. And it kind of means I can adjust things to camera as well. So here's that sort of layered piece. There we go. And I've actually, one I made earlier, I did a little frame, and I thought it'd be quite fun just to add the final frame layer on top. There we go. And so you have a multi-layered artwork ready to be shot on the table, using lots of layers of paper. And then, as I said, natural light is kind of perfect. So anyway, that's it from me. I'm going to tilt this back a little bit. Whoop. Anyway, yeah, thank you so much for coming. I genuinely appreciate this so much. And yes, Rosetta, replay. I think this is recording, so we'll try and find somewhere to put this so you can watch back at your leisure. I massively appreciate you all sparing your lunch breaks or mornings to be here today. And yeah, thank you also to my wonderful agents for setting this up. And yeah, keep in touch. My Instagram's just at Owen Gildersleeve if you want to find out more about my work. And yeah, really appreciate you being here. So yeah, thank you. Let me know if you have any follow-on questions. Feel free to drop me an email just at hello@owengildersleeve.com. And I guess I'll see you sometime, maybe next time in the States for a visit. It'll be lovely to get together and maybe show you some paper cutting in person. Cool. I think that's it. See you later, everyone. Have a lovely day. Lots of love from the UK. And yeah, see you soon. Bye.